some lawmakers in the Senate have called for the impeachment of President Muhammadu Buhari for failing to get National Assembly approval for the withdrawal of $496 million from the SS crude account to purchase 12 aircraft. The lawmaker who took turns to contribute on the motion, sponsored by Senator Matthew Urogede from Edo, said President Buhari has breached Section 80 of the Constitution, which stipulates that all government spending must be appropriated by the legislature. In his presentation, Senator Urogede, who is the chairman of the Senate Committee on Public Account, asked President of the Senate, Bukola Saraki, to allow the chamber to invoke Section 143 of the Constitution.
As a consequence, the only thing that we can draw from on this is that we call on you, Mr. President, to invoke Section 143 of this Constitution. Because what it means is that this matter is not to be investigated. It is clear that this offense has been committed by Mr. President. If it has been committed, do we now say the violation of the Constitution is what we have to take for the shortcoming of the executive or Mr. President? Or we don't believe we want to run our country like a banana republic, where expenditures and the role that the National Assembly is supposed to perform is taken away, and expenditures can be incurred by the executive without recourse to the National Assembly? So, Mr. President, I want the Senate to resolve that what the President has done is procedurally wrong. It's a violation of our Constitution. It must be condemned, and of course, the consequences that are contained in the provisions of Section 143 of our Constitution should be invoked.
Supporting the impeachment move, Senator Chukwuka Utaze from Enugu North stated that it is time for the legislature to be decisive.
If we have a chief executive who doesn't want to behave according to the Constitution, we follow the Constitution also to handle such a chief executive. And there's no way to, there's no other name to call this except that this is an impeachment offense. It's an impeachable offense, and we cannot allow that. We cannot stay here and Nigerians will be, the assembly will be taken for granted. Nigerians will be taken for granted. It should not be so, Mr. President. If you say that you are a man here, you can stand up to be counted. If you say that you are here on behalf of your people, this is time to stand up and get counted. We're talking about Nigeria. We're not talking about anybody. We're discussing about our country. This is our country. And things should be done the way it should be done. Not the way things are done. So I rise and support this motion.
Meanwhile, other lawmakers who were not in support of the impeachment call described the impeachment move as a PDP conspiracy, recalling that former President Olusegun Obasanjo and Goodluck Jonathan made similar withdrawal from the SS crude account without seeking National Assembly approval.
But we should know that Nigerian democracy is set to last for generations upon generations, but will be tested. So in my own way, I believe that the monies that are spent for security is worth it. But we should be calling for the refund of that money and for due process to be followed, for us to be able to achieve what we want to achieve. We have seen so much bloodshed, and there is a need for us not to circumvent the Constitution, not to circumvent the laws of the land, in an attempt to achieve some certain ends. So in my own way, I do not think we should impeach the president, but we should demand that the money be returned to follow due process to the end.
We should look at this as a bipartisan issue, as a security issue, which I appeal to my colleagues to look at it that way, not PDP-APC affair. Because this is a PDP conspiracy. I mentioned it again, because I heard what was going on. The discussions were going by PDP senators and their leadership, some of them. This is a time to tarnish Muhammadu Buhari's image. We cannot get him on anything. But this simple thing which the president has taken in the interest of Nigeria, I'm coming now. So my appeal is, please, let's look at this expenditure rationally. Let's look at it as Nigerian leaders. Look at it as senators who are ready to do anything possible to improve the security of Nigeria.
In his remark, Senate President Bukola Saraki, who had on Wednesday read a letter from President Buhari in which he disclosed that the money had been withdrawn and paid to the United States for the 12 Super Tucano aircraft, said this was done to beat deadline for the arm deal.
As some of you realize, I'm sure you all remember that it was September last year, September 2017, I think it was even August 2017, we're on recess, when I got the message from the US ambassador that the Senate committee at the Congress of the United States wanted to visit us because they had got a request from President Trump to approve for payment to Tucanos, but they needed Congress approval. And Congress wanted to come to Nigeria to speak with their counterparts and we all had to come back from our vacation. And I led the team with the House of Rep members and members here. And we met the members of Congress on this issue. This was in August, September. So to give them assurance. So definitely we were aware at that time of the issues. Between September and February, with all due respect, there were ample time for the executive to have carried us along on this issue.
The Senate, however, referred the matter to its Committee on Judiciary, Legal Matters to determine if the president has committed an impeachable offense and to report back to the Senate within 1 week. From National Assembly Complex, Abuja, Muyiwa Bamdele reporting.
The federal government has said that henceforth illegal movement of herdsmen from neighboring countries who come into Nigeria to commit one crime or the other will stop, as plans are on to amend the ECOWAS Treaty, which assures free movement of goods, services, human and animals across ECOWAS countries without hindrances. Speaking to newsmen after the monthly National Economic Council meeting in Abuja, Ebonyi State Governor Dave Umahi, who is the chairman of the sub-technical committee set up by the federal government to unravel the incessant farmers' headers crisis issue, said this position was reached by the council, among other resolutions, to put an end to the crisis which has taken a new dimension.
The core causes of the conflict, as we were made to understand, were mainly due to perception, and of course our media friends, competition for scarce resources, and then banditry, or what you can call pure criminal activities through cattle rustling, kidnapping, and so on and so forth. And so today we looked at 3 categories of herdsmen in Nigeria. We looked at the foreign herdsmen that come in due to the treaty, and we continue to say that the treaty is not being properly implemented, because for any herdsman to come from outside Nigeria into Nigeria, there should be a kind of certification. There must be later. So we condemn the issue of foreign invasion by the foreign herdsmen, and I'm happy that the federal government and of course the Honorable Minister of Agriculture is already talking with them. Today there was a meeting of ECOWAS countries on this subject. And we also agree that this movement also by the nomadic herdsmen, has to stop. And, and occasionally also the immigrants, those who, have settled, who migrated, from other parts of the country into various locations, like the Middle Belt and the South, they sometimes also go into conflict with farmers because of movement of their cows. So, we agree that the most profitable way and modern way of rearing this, cattle is by ranching.
Nigeria Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Audu Ogbe, also gave his position on the current negotiations going on among ECOWAS member countries on how to end the influx of killer herdsmen into Nigeria.
I was in Katsina one night when the governor told me that he was there, and he told him that 10,000 cows had just arrived from somewhere in West Africa. He had to send troops to stop them. They just arrived. men, their families and so on, loaded on cows, looking for grass. In the process, they cut down every tree they can find. Now, by the protocol of ECOWAS, you can't stop them. But we told the ministers today, and I spoke at the meeting. Can I run away? And for your information, I spoke to them in French, so they'll understand better. We cannot allow this matter to continue. Because those killed in Benue, the deputy governor just told us, he found that they look like Mauritanians. It happened before in Benue. They arrived with AK-47s, and as far as they are concerned, there's a war going on in Nigeria and they've come to fight. So today I said to the media, this thing looks no more like herdsmen and farmers clashes. It's looking like an extension of Boko Haram. Because if you go to a church, you kill priests and members in the morning. And there's no cattle you're coming around with. You just arrive, take people by surprise, or you go to an IDP camp where people are returning to their villages, and just 2 a.m. you shoot everybody and march on. Something more sinister is going on. And you can be sure the government is sending more reinforcement to trace these people around the bush and bring them to order.
On his part, the Jigawa State Governor, while speaking on the $1 billion earmarked for the purchase of Tucano fighter jets from the SS crude account, said the National Economic Council acted in the interest of Nigerians by approving such an amount, considering the situation the nation has been in terms of security.
The nation, we forget easily. If you recall, we have been battling with approval from America to buy this equipment since 2014. We have been begging Americans to sell these equipments for us. We tried Dubai, they could not allow because it's patented. We tried, I think there is a factory in one of the, I think it's in Brazil. The federal government tried, we couldn't get. The Americans still couldn't sell to Nigeria. Then luckily, the president said it's okay to buy. That's President Trump. So we have to quickly buy before they change their mind. Because there is also a deadline, and this is state-to-state transaction, no middleman. And we are all here concerned about security. And they're raising questions on how and manner on which you protect people. This is an emergency situation.
Vice President Yemi Osinbajo presided over the NEC meeting. From Abuja, I am Festus Ejiroge Nefifen for Ben Television.
Inspector General of Police Ibrahim Idris failed to appear before the Senate over the arrest and detention of Senator Dino Melaye and killing across the country. The Senate on Wednesday summoned the IGP to appear in the chamber to address the lawmaker in the plenary on Thursday. The police boss was, however, said to have accompanied President Muhammadu Buhari on a state visit to Bauchi. However, Deputy Inspector General of Police in charge of Operation Abila Joshak was asked to represent the IGP. The Senate refused to grant audience to the DIG, mandating the IGP to appear in person to brief the lawmaker on Wednesday, May 2nd, 2018.
Universal Basic Education Commission (UBEC) has concluded plans to embark on a comprehensive personnel audit of basic schools in Nigeria as a result of insufficiency of reliable data to support educational development. The exercise, which has the backing of the Minister of Education, Malam Adamu Adamu, and other stakeholders like the World Bank, is expected to overhaul the basic education system. Addressing newsmen in Abuja, the Executive Secretary UBEC, Professor Hamid Boboyi, said the exercise had become imperative to address obvious challenges bedeviling basic education delivery in the country.
The personnel audit, as we call it actually is called personnel audit only in name, because that's what is in the law, isn't it, you know? But it takes care of the entire schools, isn't it, you know? It's like counting everybody within the education sector. The pupils and the students, the teachers, their qualifications, every aspect, isn't it, you know, of their salaries, everything that will give us an idea of how the teacher factor is faring within our educational system. Of course, we have all known the various controversies that had been there in terms of qualified, unqualified teachers. I think this is what is going to give us a good handle on some of those crucial issues in terms of qualified, unqualified teachers within the system, in terms of their distribution within the various parts of the country, isn't it?
The Executive Secretary, who noted that the Commission is making effort to ensure that states begin their strategic plans, said World Bank have agreed to pay $300,000 to any state with a reviewed strategic plan.
We are making a determined effort to have states begin building their own strategic plans. We cannot address these issues when we work day to day on an ad hoc basis. Plans are done just to respond to crises. We need to have a strategic plan that should guide the development of basic education. I've also mentioned the incentivization of the whole process by the World Bank, where each state that has a reviewed strategic plan is going to get $300,000 for that purpose, because this is the basis upon which we have to start developing this particular system. So if we don't do that, it means we'll just keep on groping in the dark, having policies that are not related to the real problems that are on the ground.
Professor Hamid also confirmed that UBEC will sustain the exercise every 3 years so as to have an accurate data in personnel audits.
Unfortunately, we wish we could also go to senior secondary schools, but again, by law, we have not been mandated to do that, isn't it? So we have to stop at junior secondary schools. And it is from our discussions with those agencies that are responsible for senior secondary schools, I think they will also quickly do that, isn't it? So that the nation will start having an idea what really does it have within that basic education sector, in terms of the resources, in terms of the challenges, in terms of the enrollment as it is, isn't it? And it's an exercise, unfortunately, the last time it was done was in 2010. Yes. And I think this will give us, isn't it, a very good handle with also the hope and the promise that we should be doing that more regularly. The law is saying at regular intervals, isn't it, And my hope is that, isn't it, maybe at least every 3 years we should be able, isn't it, to undertake this kind of exercise so as to get a very good idea of what's going on within our basic education sector.
Of sustainability of this exercise every 3 years. We just want to let you know that this exercise is not just what somebody woke up from the dream and came up with. It is part of our statutory mandate.
Conduct of 2018 National Personnel Audit of all basic education institutions in Nigeria is chaired by Reverend Edwin Musa, a director in the commission. In Abuja, LM Chukwambuka reports.